Hi, everybody. This is Chris,
This is Matt.
and today we're doing something different. We're going to talk about a new game of an old franchise that we've been playing for since it came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were both really excited about this game, which is Battletech. We may as well just
Yes.
it's not a big reveal.
No, it's on the
Uh
screen right now, but
yeah. Yeah. It's Battletech, but we were both excited about it and we played Mech Warrior 2, which is, in the same universe
yeah.
earlier. And we've played a bunch of these games and we just kind of decided let's
Let's
kick it
actually,
around.
yeah, let's talk about this too. Let's do something different. Let's give an extra video and see how that goes. I'm going to start the video up here. Boop.
Yeah, so this is, it's a squad based strategy game.
Mm-hmm.
Small squad, like the rash of XCOM games that have been coming out.
Yeah, there's no way this game doesn't get compared to the new XCOM. I don't think modern turn-based strategy games cannot get compared to that. It sets such a standard.
Yeah, I
And
mean it's a fair comparison. I mean this game does have a lot going for it that's quite different than the XCOM stuff, and I think we'll probably talk about that unless you want to talk about it right now.
oh, we can talk about it whenever you want to talk about it. Because right now I think I've just got some of the intro video going.
Oh yeah, yeah, and even like the art style to me smacked of the original XCOM.
It did. I was thinking like if anybody ever chooses to like remake XCOM, not the way they remade it, but an actual honest because the original XCOM, if we're already going to talk about XCOM, we're already off the rails. The original XCOM was more of a horror game, a strategy horror with some resource management, which I thought was interesting. But it had this comic book art vibe.
Yeah, especially the intro. It kind of like came and went throughout the game, but the
Yeah.
intro was firmly like comic book
Mm-hmm.
art style, and this is similar.
Yeah. Which I think is a great way if you're trying to make a game on like an indie budget, which they were.
Yes.
Um, it's a great way to get something in there and give yourself a real aesthetic that is gonna be decidedly you. And I just
Hmm.
thought it did a good job. Um, we're gonna
Yeah,
talk about. Go
the
on.
art is all beautiful, and the voice acting has ups and downs, but largely it's good.
Mm-hmm.
It's passable.
I've never been knocked out of the game by the voice acting.
Yeah.
You know. Um, so, and our notes we jumped into this so fast. Our notes are kind of chaotic. So
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, it
you
was kind
just
of a
have to
spur of
bear
the
with
moment
us. Yeah.
decision. Yeah, as are most of our decisions,
Most
I
of our
think.
decisions. Yes.
One thing that impressed me about this intro was how wide the scope is. Actually, that impressed me in general about this game. Like the Battletech universe is huge, and there's a lot of opportunities that they took advantage of to like give you lore to suck you into the world. And that intro is a perfect example because it like spans, hundreds or I don't know how many years, but a
I'm gonna
lot of
pause it right
years.
here because like what I'm doing and talking about the lore. This is one of the cleverest things I think they've done in the game. Is there's highlighted words and or bold words, and if you hover over them, it gives you lore for that word. Rather than create an exposition where you have to go through a conversation with somebody, you can just hover over and pop up style find out more about the universe. So if this isn't something you're really invested in or really understand, it gives you the opportunity to do that without it feeling drawn out.
Yeah, and the content's really good too because like if you read just what's behind there without the lore dump, it's like concise and it makes sense. And you'll see like some of the bolded words come up over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And so you kind of get a feel for what's important and what's more like ancillary. Uh, but that's a very good system.
Very good system. I think the thing that it surprised me the most about this game is I went in um, planning a strategy game, where normally when you get a strategy game, it's here's your mission, here's your mission, here's your mission. And there's
Hmm.
really, and then at the end you find out you've been fighting the same guy the whole time and you blow him up. There's not really this invested story for you to get involved in.
Hmm.
That caught me off guard because every Let's Play, everything I watched beforehand didn't talk about all of that, all of the um, stuff like this, where you're picking your character's backstory. That's going to
Hmm.
matter in the game because it's going to open or close dialogue options for you that create other opportunities as you go through to improve your ship or improve relations or do a whole bunch of things because of what you've done and where you've been. There's a role playing aspect to this that I didn't expect to find.
Yeah, yeah, those seemed like really fresh and interesting, but and not intrusive. Like
Mm-mm.
they don't beat the role playing over your head. Like you get dialogue options and it'll flag some of them when they're pertinent to your history, which is really cool because like
Yeah,
it gives you you know, kind of a personality as a player.
yeah. And I get the feeling you can ignore the story.
Yeah.
Like, I have never been pushed into a story mission. They just happen from time to time. You get called, like, hey, I'm ready for you to come do a story mission. You can do other stuff. I've never been penalized for it. Um, I'm doing a character creation now. We should talk about this.
Yeah, you had a real problem with some overrepresentation here in this section,
I
didn't you?
did. I like.
Uh
Let's see if I
they
can get back to it.
yeah. So
So,
the
and this is a problem. Like, I understand they want some variety and diversity, but I feel like the amount of faux hawks in the game,
a lot of faux hawks in
a
this
lot of
thing.
faux hawks, and
Way too many. I don't, you know, I don't want to piss anyone off, but there are other hairstyles out
there's other
there, you
hairstyles
know.
out there. It's too many faux hawks and too many like Mike Tyson face tattoos. And I see
Yep.
this in like every sci-fi fantasy game right now where they're like, "Oh, we're going to give you like 12 different ways to tattoo your face and 17 stupid hairstyles." And I'm sorry if you have a faux hawk, it's not that that's stupid, but you know what I mean. It just and then
It's too
every
much.
character in the game has one of these. And I'm like, in real life, I've met 3 people.
Right. You're never going to get a moderately paying IT job with that faux hawk and face tattoo, right?
Right? No. It, and I understand these are supposed to be mercenaries and stuff, but
Right.
it
Yeah.
just is too much. And should we talk about why we're joking about that? Because
Yeah, yeah,
I
we
am
do.
serious on right off the bat. I am serious about the overrepresentation of faux hawks and face tattoos. Although this isn't too bad here.
Yeah.
Um,
There are a lot of faux hawks. But a lot of people were pissed off about this pronoun thing because you can
this
choose the pronoun as well as the he or she. And
right.
like I think that's pretty cool because I think it's kind of natural to want to be reflected in your character that you're playing in a video game.
I think it's cool that it's inclusive, and it's one of the things whenever I hear gamers get upset about this, it pisses me off. Because as a kid, I didn't fit in with anyone. Gamers took me in. That's why I became a gamer, because they were the inclusive group. And as much as I hear now gamers like being exclusive, it really ticks me off. So, um,
Yeah. And like it's from a technological standpoint, it's probably just like a text overlay somewhere
yeah,
where it dumps in the correct pronoun and they're not forcing you to be the they pronoun. And I think that's important because if you prefer to be referred to as the they pronoun, that's how you felt in every game up until now, where you're
yeah,
forced to take something that you don't really like, you're not feeling it.
right.
So I think it's awesome. Like,
No,
you should be able to feel uh, like, you know, like you
like you
belong in the
belong.
game world. Yeah.
You belong. Um, One of the things when we getting ready for this and um, was making fun of the faux hawks and going through all the selections, I did notice, and that is, and I've seen this in other games, so I think it's worth noticing or mentioning. There's a distinct lack of black hairstyles, for lack of a better way to say it.
Hmm. I
That
didn't
there's
notice
no
that.
dreads, there's no anything that really is a more natural hair for someone who doesn't have like our hair.
Yeah. No one has hair like you, buddy.
No one has hair like me.
not, not since
Not
1989.
since '89. That was the other thing I was gonna say. So like we've got
There's no
faux hawks.
mullets.
There are no mullets. There
Not
are
a
no
mullet to be
mullets.
found. Yeah. I guess she can't please everyone.
Can't please everyone. Can't please everyone. Not that I
Yeah.
have a mullet. I'm full long, but that's a different story.
Yeah.
Um, no mullets.
Did you have a mullet though?
You shut your dirty mouth.
I knew it.
I think we lived together when I had a mullet.
Yeah, I think we did.
I think we did. Mullet and tight pants.
Mm-hmm. High pants.
High pants. High and
It's
tight.
not the tightness. Yeah. Unlike your hairstyle.
Unlike my hairstyle. Tight
But
pants
anyway.
and puffy shirts. Anyway,
Yeah. Puffy shirts are
they're comfy.
always cool. Yeah.
No, so that was that. They're going to add some more character options, I guess, coming in. I read up on what the next patches are coming up, so we'll talk about some of our complaints, and they're going to be addressed.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm going through. You can really. There are a lot of choices with customizing your character and keeping it in this comic style that I thought was.
Yeah, that's impressive. Like usually it's a big render job.
Mm-hmm.
But this is I liked the character creation. I mean, you can't really like tweak your facial structure the same way you can in like Fallout or whatever or
Right.
Skyrim. But it's like
It's
cool.
enough.
And I like that you can adjust the camera too. So
Yeah.
you can get like these epic low down shots with dramatic lighting. It's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
I was into it.
I also feel like it's worth mentioning this was made in Unity because Unity gets a bad rap.
Right. And there are times, and I think we'll probably talk about this once you get into combat, where you kind of feel the Unity engine a little bit behind the scenes.
I think you feel the low budget behind the scenes as much as the Unity engine.
That's true. Like the forest was made in Unity, right?
Yeah.
Or was that Unreal?
Nope.
Yeah, and that's graphically amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway,
looking
we're not here to talk about the forest. I want to say it was Unreal. Let's take a moment.
Forest is made in Unity. Just looked it up.
Yeah,
they did an amazing job. The thing with Unity is it's good enough out of the box that a lot of people can make a game that looks good enough. And so usually most people don't touch it. So you get the same camera filters, the same camera look, the same everything in your Unity games, especially from, low budget indie people who that's what they make. But if you want to go in there and roll up your sleeves and tweak with the rendering and the post processing and everything else, you can make a good looking game in Unity.
Yeah.
I think Unreal still has the edge, but not as much as Unreal would like you to believe.
Yeah. Well, I think the forest is proof of that.
Yeah.
Like that game visually blew me away.
Mm-hmm.
But Battletech, while not flashy, is still attractive, I think.
Yes.
Like I think the landscapes especially are really like kind of beautifully rendered and
well done.
Dynamic. Yeah. Really, really good.
I'm spending a lot of time picking on hairstyles here because I really want
You are hyper focused on this guy's hairstyle, I think. Just give that fucker a man bun and let's move along.
Yeah, I'll drag the thing.
Choose your faux hawk and let's do this.
All right. Lack of over. Yeah. So what we're talking about pilots. Oh, what do you want to say about the intro?
I was just gonna make some generic comments to fill the dead space about how these cutscenes, none of their mouths ever move, but they're still dramatic and interesting to look at. But I think we've talked about the cutscenes quite a bit, so
yeah. We can move on from there.
Moving on.
Yeah, no, we were talking about character creation. Might as well talk about character upgrades. So it uses sort of the pen and paper system. In this whole game, like almost uses the pen and paper system with its numbers. It's still got some of the same concepts, but you'll notice if you're coming to it from a pen and paper background, the stats are off, and I'm going to have some issues with that. Uh,
It does. You feel the tabletop game uh, behind the scenes a lot, especially if you look at things like your modifiers,
mm-hmm.
because they're not intuitive. Like I think like the to hit modifiers negative is better or something like
Yeah.
that. And like you can just like look at that and it's so unintuitive that you know it's like from some tabletop system
Mm-hmm.
like fucking Thaco or something where it
Yeah.
just really makes no sense to anyone but people who know the tabletop system, but they make it work.
Well, Thaco and armor class going down came because the guy who did it basically lifted it off a naval armor class system, and that was how the Navy did their armor class. So
Hmm.
for that, it worked, and then it came to D&D, and it didn't really work the same way. But there's
Yeah.
your little bit extra trivia.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So one of the things with movement I've got issues with, in again, we're going to compare this to XCOM. Like there's a move button and there's a run button.
Hmm.
I feel like there should be a range where you're moving and a range where you're running. And XCOM did this nice, like, you're yellow, you're red, or you're green, you're yellow, or something like that. So wherever you put your cursor, you knew whether you're going to be able to still shoot or not. Because a couple times I haven't realized I was on run and then couldn't shoot.
Yeah, it does a good job of choosing the default that you want. Like if you're not in combat yet, it'll default to the sprint, which
Mm-hmm.
is, obviously where you can't shoot. And if you're in combat, it defaults to move.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree. There's no real compelling reason to have those separate that I can think of.
No, I can't think of any reason. And if you get rid of them being separate and move them to something more like just drag around the screen unless you've hit a button, that frees up two buttons on your hotbar. They could add more special abilities and fill that in.
Yeah, I don't think the special ability thing. Okay, so like there's skills,
Mm-hmm.
there's tactics, piloting, gunnery, guts,
Yeah.
etc.
No, it's just those. I think just those four.
Just those? Okay.
Yeah.
And those are like your skills, and then as you level up in those skills, there's special abilities, and those special abilities wind up on your hotbar.
Right.
But I don't think it's limited so much by the space in the hotbar. I do agree that having it separate, having run and or walk and sprint separate would make that cleaner.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that's a limiting factor. I think that was just a weird design decision
Well, I mean,
or
it's
from the tabletop game.
no, I don't think it's from that. I think let's see if they can. I'll let it go here. I want to pause it when it comes up again.
What are you looking for?
I'm waiting for the hotbar to pop up so I can talk about it.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
can come back to it later. I'm agreeing with you that you're right that that's probably not the limiting factor, but I think if you took those two things off and suddenly saw how little was there without it, you would be
Right.
far more willing to try and fill that in.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. And it feels
Going back a couple seconds here, I want to try this
sure.
again. Keep
If
talking though.
it feels like you want to have more options with your pilots, especially because some of those skills are passive. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not a simple game. Like there's a lot happening in combat and maybe it would be too much to have a bunch of extra options down there, but it feels like from a character development standpoint that you want more.
Well, you can say that like there's too much. There would be too much happening in combat, but there's so much happening in combat. Like a couple more skills isn't going to be the thing that makes you go, "Ooh, this is a skill." You know,
It's too
it's
complicated.
too complicated. Oh, I've got three extra skills. That's not going to be the thing that breaks you in this. It's that there's heat, stability, aim, You've got structure and armor points to worry about, plus your pilots got their own hit points and their own skills. The mech, you then can customize what weapons go on it, how many heat sinks, how many jump jets, where you put your armor, how much armor. When you're
Yep.
targeting an opponent, you can target their arms, their torso, parts of their torso, their head, their legs. Each of those things does different things in terms of taking off their weapons or adding onto their weapons. You got to worry about your heat because every time you shoot a weapon, there's extra heat, and there's weapons that when you shoot at another person, there's heat. I don't think two more skills is what's going to cause the problem. I haven't
No, no,
talked
you're
about
right.
terrain yet.
Right. Right. Stability. Like there's so much, and the thing is that it's like you don't have to play it to that level of depth, but to play it well, you have to at least appreciate that those things are there.
All those things aren't going to matter every round, but every so often you're going to see an opportunity to use one of those levers, and you're going to just want to ream on it as hard as you can.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the game super fun. Catching those opportunities where, oh, that jerk just walked through uneven ground. Hit him with every kinetic weapon I've got and tip him over.
Right.
Because when you tip him over, now you can do called shots. I didn't even mention called shots in that last patch.
Right. And
um,
that's a great thing too. Like the called shots are like a special shot where you can choose exactly where you're shooting the mech, but they're based on factors that are mostly outside of combat.
mm-hmm.
So it ties in the overworld map
Yeah.
to what you're doing in the actual combat.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's not one of those where you pick called shot and then it does some numbers for you to change. You have to create a situation that allows you to do the called shot, which
Right.
I'm stealing that idea and throwing in my next game because that's the way to do called shots. Called shots should have to have something that allows you to take them rather than you take them because you want an advantage.
Right. And you have to set up aside from managing the morale outside of the combat system, you have to manage how when and how you use those called shots within combat too,
Mm.
because you have a greater chance to hit certain areas of the mech based on your orientation and
Right. Yeah,
all kinds of factors.
just because you're targeting the mech doesn't mean you're going to be able to target the side you want because you might not be in the right position to.
Right.
On I should get this plan again here. I just wanted to show along the bottom. There's a bunch, but they're all grayed out because this is still the tutorial.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The number of mechs is impressive, and they didn't include the clan mechs. How do you feel about that?
The what's the I was trying to think of the name of the
The Mad
like
Cat.
the Mad Cat. That's like the classic mech that you saw in like on the cover of all the other games, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just not in here. I liked the Nova. That was my favorite mech in all the other games. It was tiny. It weighed nothing. It was really kind of crappy.
Yeah.
But my first car was a Chevy Nova '88, so I liked it, and I'd load it up with jump jets, and it's missing, and that kind of makes me a little bit sad because I think because I'm not so much into the lore, and like I don't really care if it's a clan mech or not, and I don't know that
Mm-hmm.
that's pertinent. So I think, I mean, it doesn't bother me, but I kind of like miss some
You
of
miss
those
your familiar
mechs.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, the thing with the clans was the whole premise, not the whole premise, but a big premise behind this game is once we went into the stars, humans went back to war with each other. That happens. But okay, yeah, here we go. We went back to war with each other. During that war, they targeted mech factories and eventually destroyed so many of them, no one knows how to make mechs anymore. So all the mechs that are left, they're people salvaging and keeping together and their family heirlooms that are handed down due to hereditary rights. And that's part of the story in Game World. The clans were out in the distant periphery. Somebody who used to make mechs escaped and started building even more advanced mechs. So all the clan mechs are a technology level ahead of
Like next
the
gen.
inner realm, inner sphere mechs.
Hmm.
And so they kind of overpower everything. Once you get in them, you just curb stomp everybody else.
Yeah.
And I mean that's why you like the Nova. People like the Mad Cat because they're super OP and
Hmm.
fun, but I'm kind of happy they didn't put them in. I'm I don't want to say I'm sick of seeing them, but I like the thought of there being a little, I don't know, that there's a reason to pick the other mechs. That I'm looking through here right now, going, oh, what do I want to use for this? What do I want to use for that? And building balanced lances to really choose what I want and how I want to carry it in.
Yeah, it is fun, and the way you get new mechs too in this game, I really liked,
Mm-hmm.
because you kind of have to salvage, and that plays a part in your strategy as well, because how you take out the other mechs affects how much salvage you get. Like if you destroy the center torso, you destroy the legs, uh, keeping the other parts intact, you're in much better shape salvage wise.
And we should talk about salvage and the other part that plays in, because the premise in this story is you're a mercenary. You're head of a mercenary group. So you do the hiring, the firing, the maintaining of your ship that you fly around in, and the upkeep and repair of all your mechs within, including salvaging to get new mechs and negotiating contracts with the people you're going to go do work for. In those negotiations, you can pick whether you want more money or more salvage. And in the salvage, you get to hand pick a certain number of pieces, and then they pick the rest for you.
I think it's
So
random actually. What after you pick
after you,
yours?
well, it's random, but I mean, effectively, it's them
Yeah,
picking for you. So you don't know what you're gonna get.
yeah.
Um, so and or you can like shortchange yourself a little bit to get karma with that faction, and if you get enough karma with that faction, you can lower prices in stores, so you don't have to pay as much to buy stuff. So, I mean, keeping the money coming in while you're trying to do these story missions, at least so far for us, has been a challenge.
Definitely. Yeah, I would say this is not an easy game at all. I have
No.
not found it to be easy. There are very easy missions, deceptively easy missions in the beginning,
Hmm.
but the difficulty seems to ramp up really quickly.
This is going to be the first one of our complaints, and it's going to be the first thing I can tell you. They've promised in a future patch they're going to look at it because people have complained about the difficulty spikes. You go from like 1 star, 1.5 star missions where you're like, okay, I got this, and then you go to 2 out of 5, and
Mhm.
you just get pounded. It's
Yep.
all of them. Just you're like, okay, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do because none of these missions are doable for me, and I'm running out of money.
Yep. Yep. It's not great. And the thing is that all the missions happen on this continuum.
Hmm.
It's not just like you have your shit and then you go to a mission and then when you're done you have your shit
No,
again.
you can have a
You have to
pilot out for three
fix it.
months.
Yep. Yeah, which is probably my second complaint is that there is a lot of time spent watching time go by waiting for things to happen.
That gets better. Have you gotten your second dropship yet?
Yes. Yes.
Once you start upgrading,
Okay.
that short, like I still might have a pilot or so out, but I hire backup pilots now.
Yeah.
Mechs get restored and churned through a lot faster, and having like right here, I've got
Oh damn, you got a lot of mechs here.
these are just the ones I've got active. I think I'm going to show storage here in a second. But yeah, I've got 2 rows of mechs, so even if I lose a couple, if I lose a whole lance, I've still got enough to field for another mission.
Yeah.
Here's the. You want to talk about this screen at all? Probably should, because this
Yeah,
is.
this is the mech outfitting screen,
Mm-hmm.
which is also nuanced, highly nuanced and in depth, but kind of fun to tinker with.
Yeah.
So there's a lot happening here. You have types of hard points. So uh, those are right under. It's
It's
hard to
hard to
describe.
see. Yeah.
Yeah, but like you can have kinetic hard points, laser hard points,
Missile hard points, and then
missile hard
small.
points. Yeah, and then like melee type. weapons. So you have the type, but you also have the size, right?
Hmm.
Because the number everything takes up a certain number of slots.
So yeah, you can see like my large laser takes up 2 slots, but AC5 ammo and LRM ammo only take up 1 slot. Jump shots only take up 1 slot. But they also take up weight. You can only have so much
Right.
weight on your mech. The hard points are new to this. I don't remember them anywhere else. It's been so long since I played pen and paper. I don't want to swear they weren't in it, but I don't remember them being in it. But like you can only put one laser and one small on the arm. You can only put two missiles in the torso. You can't put those missiles on the arm. You have to put them in the torso.
Yeah, it's really an interesting system. That I like it a lot because it's not so complicated that you can't deal with it. And it also kind of builds a story around some of the mechs. Like some of the mechs will have all ballistic hard points. I forgot which one it
Hmm.
was. But it's like this is all ballistic and it's like a really interesting mech to have in your arsenal for certain situations.
I
Uh,
think
Go
that
ahead.
helps you want to pick more different types of mechs and field
Hmm.
more different types of mechs for different missions. Like if you're dropping on an arid world, you might not want all beam lasers. You might
Right.
not want all beam weapons because you're going to overheat really, really fast. But you also got to make sure ballistic weapons can run out of ammo. So plan accordingly.
Right,
Um,
and your ammo can just like fucking blow up and wreck your whole Christmas.
yes, if you get a crit on an ammo pack, it can blow up and do extra damage.
The other thing that's cool
Yay!
too, like you'll find yourself like right now, if I were building this, I would take the left arm armor all the way down to save the weight because there's nothing on that arm. It gives you a lot of flexibility and a lot to think about as far as where you place your armor, where you place your weapons, ammo, all that stuff. Are you still there?
I'm thinking.
Oh, my comments are so thought provoking that I stymied you.
Yeah, I should drop the armor on that arm that
Yeah, because fuck it. Who cares? Who cares
right?
if it blows off your left arm with no guns on it? I mean, it does affect because you sometimes shots kind of tunnel into your torso through your arm,
So
through
yeah,
your left torso into your center torso. So you want something there, but I mean, what are you defending by having a bunch of armor there?
so
Not that
yeah,
much.
the left arm um basically if you get hit in the left arm after it's gone, it then goes to the torso then goes to the center torso, and you're done. You're just done. You can also just shoot off legs, but
Yep.
just shooting off legs is hard to get both of them. Um,
But that's salvage country, baby. If you
hmm
can get rid of someone's legs,
Well, and
that's
then
cash money.
if you're playing the action games, you remember that was the sort of thing you would do. You just shoot kneecaps. You just everything would be.
Right, and it
Yeah,
was great.
it was great. All your Mech Warrior games were shoot kneecaps, shoot kneecaps, shoot kneecaps. This game that's harder than it looks because movement speed affects how likely you are to get hit. Like there's a whole evasion thing on top of all this too. There's lots of different little things. This is the perfect kind of game for a computer because it keeps track of all those and tells you
Right.
about them in a fairly decent way. And then yeah, you've got all this stuff over here on the side, and if I want to refit, if I want to pull stuff off, it will take time to refit the mech based on how good my mech bay is, and maybe if I've done if I had some special events that might boost my mech score for a little bit for like 14 days or something. I've had that happen too. Um, right now, one of the things that's biting me in the ass is I don't have any PPCs. I should buy some,
Yeah, you got to have PPCs.
but
They do a lot of really good quality of life stuff like up there that you're using.
mm-hmm.
Max armor,
Yeah.
like so they throughout this game, in fact, they did a lot of stuff to make it kind of easy to manage these things. If you want to like say, okay, I always want to have max armor, there's a button for that. You don't have to,
Right.
go through a bunch of rigmarole to make it happen.
No, and it'll do its best to kind of evenly balance the armor across everything and give you max armor. There is one spot where they just did shit. They just completely shit the bed on it, and that is in the multiplayer. For being able to go in and mess with your mechs, you have to completely leave the lobby system, completely leave matchmaking, go out, build mechs, build a lance, then go back in and set up again. I can't just, while I'm in the middle of a night of playing games with Matt, go, I want to try flamers. Like, he brought some in, and in order for me to just put them on two of my guys and try it, I have to completely leave matchmaking, set up a lance, go back in, and do it again. And
Yeah, not only that, but you have to copy what's there. So you have to take the base mech, make a copy of it, edit it, and then like go back and put it in the copy of the lance that you had to make.
mm-hmm,
It's really, that interface is really bad, and
it's
it discourages you from tinkering a lot.
I feel like, and that's the joy of MechWarrior. Like, the combat's fun, but the tinkering, like the sitting around talking about, should I just strip all the armor off one arm, and the strategy and layers of like, how do I build this mech to do the task I want within these four mechs, so that I've got a well-rounded combat thing going on here. Like, okay, I'm going to take a guy out with two PPCs and he's going to overheat like a beast. But if I use my other guys to set up for him,
Yeah.
we knew that. One of the matches I was doing against you, I had one guy on a really light mech who would run way up, get a sensor lock on people, and everybody from way back would just drop missiles. And
Yep.
you couldn't even get in range of them, because that guy would just be running around until I ran out of missiles and had to engage. But by then, you're chewed up.
Yeah. Yeah, those are when those things work, it's really gratifying. When
Yeah.
your harebrained mech lance ideas pan out, it's really cool.
Yeah. Like, you're like, oh, this is this is a crazy idea, but I want to see if it happens. Oh, it did. It better than I could have anticipated. But
Yep.
um, another thing they kind of screwed up on, and you say you have mixed feelings on this, and it goes back to comparing this to XCOM. In a modern turn-based strategy game, I feel lack of Overwatch is completely unacceptable.
Yeah, we should probably can we get into like a combat, cuz we have a lot to talk about when it comes to the here we go.
Yeah, here's the mission that I've been on for 2 days, just getting my butt kicked. So
So Overwatch, if you haven't played XCOM, basically means that you take your action for the turn to wait for people to come into your field of view, so you can have a initiative to shoot them
mhm,
while it's their turn.
yeah,
So
because if I've got my gun and I take up position behind some barrels and I'm pointing at the corner of a building waiting for someone to walk around it, I have the drop on that person.
right. I
But
agree from a common sense standpoint. The reason I have mixed feelings about it is because I think the reason MechWarrior is so much fun is because it encourages you to get into those slogfest person to person combat situations. And I think that if you had Overwatch, what you'd wind up doing is just camping with everyone on Overwatch, waiting to unleash these huge arsenals of weapons on people, which is kind of what happens in XCOM.
I think, well, Overwatch could be more restrictive, even. Like, because in this, we didn't even talk about, there's field of view. There's each
Mm-hmm.
of your mechs has a field of view and a firing arc, and you can't shoot outside it.
Yeah,
And different mechs have different arcs, I'm starting to notice. So, uh, but you could do something like, because you have sensors, you're like, okay, I'm waiting for this guy. You could even pick, I'm overwatching a guy. And then if
yeah,
somebody else, there's some compromise we could make on it. But like, when I know a guy's coming around a building and I've got my entire squad there, he shouldn't be able to walk around the corner and PPC me in the face and end it when four guys had to drop on him.
yeah, yeah. Again, like I hear you. It makes total sense that you should be able to reserve some time to Overwatch. Um, but I think ultimately
It
that they
probably
did
makes
make
for a
the right
better game, but
decision.
it does make for
Yeah,
some frustrating moments.
definitely.
I would
Because
even accept it as a skill,
well, yeah, that would make sense. The
especially with as
thing,
limited as you get.
yeah, the thing I really like about this combat over XCOM is that it's not that one shot, one kill, can never get hit type of idea where you've got to skulk behind cover, you've got to eke your way up. Uh, there's you just go like you're gonna take hits, people are gonna shoot you. It's gonna be you know a murder fest out there, and that's fun. That's way
Hmm.
more fun to me than skulking around trying to flank people and like
Yeah,
that's cool, but
there's nothing stealthy about walking around in a 50-ton robot. It's
absolutely not.
so
But
no,
it's fun.
it is
It's
fun.
fun as hell. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned managing initiative seems complicated. I don't feel like it does. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think in general, there well, there's a lot happening in combat. So there's initiative phases that go from like 5 to 1, and
Hmm.
people who have a 5 go first, and it's based on how heavy your mech is. And there's things you can do uh, to manipulate that system, and it influences a lot of the choices you have to make too. Like if I'll find myself when I'm choosing a target, like I'll choose not the person who's most vulnerable, but the person who hasn't moved yet and is going to be moving soon. Like I'm more likely to target those people. But to me, the system seems complicated, mostly because there's so many fucking chevrons in this UI. I don't need any more chevrons. Look at
Chevrons and faux hawks. That's the,
yeah.
that's the subtitle of
This is a
Battletech.
game about chevrons and faux hawks. I'm not wrong though.
No, you're not wrong. There are a
Like
lot of chevrons.
there's like 9 chevrons on the screen right now, and some of them are UI elements, and some of them are meaningful. Some of them are horizontal, some are vertical, but there's a lot of chevrons.
All right, let me wait and get a good chevron count here.
Yeah, when it's your turn, uh,
Hey,
yeah,
here's one. Once the initiative pops back up, we'll kind of talk about what you're talking about again too. Boop. So up
yeah,
top, there's chevrons that are
yeah.
marking how many of your team gets to go and how many of their team gets to go in this or each and every turn. Um, you will only see chevrons for the vehicles or mechs you have spotted already.
Mhm.
No flying vehicles. I just realized that. There's like no copters or anything.
Yeah, and there were copters in the Mech Warrior games,
Yeah.
definitely. Maybe there are later. I haven't seen them
Yeah, I
though.
guess I haven't seen any yet, but I kind of
Okay, so
expect.
here's a bunch of chevrons.
So
So
yeah.
those are the ones next to your names. Those are your evasive chevrons. So the amount you move affects how difficult you are to hit, which makes sense. Like if you're sprinting, you're going to be hard to hit.
Okay, so yeah, let's even talk about that within this. So 4-bit center screen here is right in the Centurion. He's got 3 chevrons next to his name.
Yep.
After he moves, there's 2 chevrons over the place he's moving to. That will be his new evasion score. And
Right. Which
then there's a red line going over to uh, this other one who's got some chevrons around him, which I believe is implying that he's moved.
no, incorrect. Those chevrons that surround the bad guy,
Yeah.
that's the color of the chevrons matters and the quantity of chevrons matters. So what that means is that you will have two
Shit.
weapons that will have a low chance to hit when you make that move because they're orange chevrons and there's two of them. So
Fascinating. I
that's how
always
you plan your moves. You have to look at that.
how
Look at those chevrons.
how I've always done it is I click, and then before I pick my viewing radius, I will hover over that, and it will give me the percentage rundown in my little box, my little Monopoly card on the lower right.
Yeah, yeah. No, and the fact that the line is curved means it's indirect
It's
fire
an
from your
indirect fire.
LRMs. Yeah.
Now, you can have indirect fire from a straight line if it's far enough away. I was discovering that today. And indirect fire
Oh.
does half damage.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I've like sensor locked someone like way downtown and then had a guy who was chewed up shooting an AC 5 and it was a straight line, but it was considered indirect because he didn't really have line of sight.
Hmm.
But it's cool that
Yeah.
you can do that. This is one of the things like you can get your team to work together to take things out. You don't just line up and shoot until the other guy falls down. Um, yeah, that's hilarious. Okay, I learned something about chevrons. And then there's more chevrons down here, which I
I don't
did
know what
have.
those chevrons are. Don't know what those are.
Those are another representation of your evasion
Oh, your
score.
evasion.
Yeah,
I,
along with some other icons saying like I'm on rough ground and I'm something and I'm something and I'm going in turn 3.
yep. And
I
we're kind of making fun of it, but this UI is incredibly rich and it's showing you a whole bunch of information. Uh, and you can kind of like pick and choose how much of it you want to keep in your brain at any given
hmm
time.
Yeah, a lot of it there if you hover over it'll tell you what's going on. I think my only I have a couple UI issues. The nice thing about the lines, I have mixed feelings on the lines because on one hand, the lines let you easily see who you can shoot, which means you can easily see who can shoot you.
Hmm.
And um, but there can sometimes be so many that it feels overwhelming and it makes you not want to do something, even though it's probably the right thing to do or it's something you would have done if those lines weren't there because it is a logical choice.
Hmm.
Um, but my actual complaint is like, do you see all these dots?
Yeah.
All these dots are places you can move on the ground, but they're not everywhere you can move on the ground. They're within a certain area around your cursor. And I don't need them. They don't do anything. Like they're supposed to be change colors if you get in somewhere like if there was
If you're in the forest, they turn green,
green.
and
Yeah.
forest gives you more cover. Yeah, yeah.
There's mineral deposits that cause other things and stuff like that. But I could just hover over the forest and watch my. That's how I do it in like XCOM. Like I drag it around, and when I see something turn on for me, I'm like, oh, that's what this square will do. And I can, looking at the terrain, I should be able to have a sense of I think that's forest, or I think that's a mineral field, or I think that's something else I want to use. So I don't need this here, and it ends up just feeling extra busy in something that's already bordering on unwelcomely busy.
Yeah. There's also a lot of redundant
Mm-hmm.
information here. Like you've got those bars above your dudes, uh,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like gray and white. The white is your armor, I think, and the gray is your structure.
Yep.
And that's represented there. It's represented on the left side as
Lower
well.
left. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll get this moving around again here.
The evasion is represented a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if you want to pause it, go back 1 second. Those arcs too are also kind of redundant because that's showing you pretty much the same thing as those chevrons.
Yeah.
The highlighted areas show you the min and max range of your
Mm-hmm.
weapons. I guess you don't need to go see it. I think I painted a word picture so beautiful that everyone will
Everyone will
know.
know. Yeah.
Yeah. But the UI it's rich. It's not. It's bordering on overly busy, but I think that they made overall good choices.
I want to go back to that just a second ago here. That's what I. Oh, dang it. Dang it.
Is this VLC you're using for this to display these videos?
No, just Windows Movie Player.
Oh, okay.
This is what I wanted to pull up. The shot modifier.
Yes, this is what I was talking about when I said that it's some tabletop bullshit.
Oh, why did you?
Oh man,
There we go.
here we go. This is happening. So it's like plus the pluses are red.
Paused. There we go.
Yeah, at least they color coded them. The pluses are
Right.
harder.
Yeah.
So that's confusing. In no world is that not confusing.
hmm And then you can see like the damage, what heat's going to happen, all that stuff. And
Yeah.
like certain the auto cannons and stuff, if you keep firing them, they keep getting harder to hit with each repetitive shot. So you got to stop and rebrace. And
Yep.
I mean,
But you do get a bonus for arm mounted weapons. Did you know that?
I
They're more
did see that
accurate.
today. Yeah.
That's very cool. But they're more vulnerable to getting shot off, as I've
hmm
learned.
Yeah. Well, especially if you take all the armor off.
Right. No shit. Yep.
Oh. Anyway, yeah. I mean, there's a ton going on strategy wise. I don't. So one of my complaints about this that I feel like they've screwed up is there is no real advantage, and in many cases, there's a disadvantage to taking the larger weapons. They
Hmm.
dish out more damage in a shot, but they generate usually twice or more heat. They use up more ammo. They don't like if I take an LRM 5 versus an LRM 10. The LRM 10 doesn't do it does exactly double damage from the LRM 5. It does that much weight or a little bit more. It does double the heat. It's essentially like taking two LRM 5s. So, and then it's got so much weight that, again, why didn't I just take two LRM 5s that I could maybe split fire on? Or one could get destroyed and I still have missiles. It's really discouraging to work your way up to heavy weapons on some of these things, especially when, like, you're not going to be able to put them all on your mechs anyway. They're really stringing you with the weight. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you
I
run
think
into that? Do you feel that?
I feel that the other thing that ties into that, I think, is how fluid the state of your mechs is in this game because they constantly get damaged. You can't have a, like, this is how I want this mech to look, and it's always going to look like that. It's going to be different based on what salvage you have. Like, maybe you don't have two LRM 5s, even if you'd prefer that, you know?
Well, yeah, right now, like one of the things I think screwing me in this mission is I don't have PPCs right now.
Yeah, right. And that's both interesting from a gameplay element, but it also kind of sucks because you can't mentally commit a certain mech to a certain role because you it might be totally different the next mission.
No, but you should be trying to keep that mech in basically that configuration. I wish they had templates in that design screen for me to like save as a template, reload template, and then it tell me you're missing like three medium lasers or you're missing.
Right, and then you can put on whatever to compensate. Yeah, that
Mm-hmm.
would be nice. Uh, I named all my mechs. Like you can name your mechs, you can't name your pilots, but
That's coming. That's another one of my complaints that's coming.
that's nice. So I name my mechs, and I kind of include what role they're going to have
Mm-hmm.
and what range they're happiest operating at, because there's both minimum and maximum ranges.
Yeah.
So it gets kind of complicated
Yeah.
to
Certain
remember
weapons will
who's
do better
who.
long range versus short range and vice versa. And again, part of the whole balancing combat that's just crazy.
Yeah.
So even with all that, there's a couple things I wish combat did. I wish you
Go.
could shut off your mechs.
Yeah. There was a mech game that I used to love, Ultrabots,
Mm-hmm.
that had this concept of active and passive radar. That would be a cool like addition.
I wish I could shut off my mech to avoid sensor lock, to just be like walk into a woods, turn off my mech, and leave it off. And if they don't spot me, they don't see me until I decide to power on. And I'll lose a turn powering on, but by then I might be at their back or I might be something else. So it would allow a little cat and mouse that I think would be there.
I agree that that's a good idea.
Yeah. There's no Well, I shouldn't say there's no. I had a mission that actually did do area of effect, so I know they can do it. But there's no way to just say, I want my missiles to rain down in this circle.
Yeah, that would be nice for the buildings. Like there's a few missions where you have to destroy clusters of buildings. It
Hmm.
would be nice to be able to just like rain hellfire down on the whole block and not have to waste turns dicking
Well,
around
and like,
targeting building at a time.
yeah, like here we've got two mechs standing right next to each other, and I'm just sort of raining missiles down. You can't tell me I can't just sort of spray a little bit and hit both of them,
Right.
you know? Um, or that some of them would have hit them just by accident. And I'm willing to accept within all that that there should be some friendly fire.
There is no friendly
There's
fire,
no friendly fire. There should be some friendly fire. If I'm
especially with the because when the missiles miss, they go all over the place, and
right,
it's a good time. It's fun to watch. Or like the flamers,
yeah,
that should affect everyone who's within range of that
yeah.
flamer.
Especially if you're like flanking the guy and you're getting baked too. No, it for a game that's supposed to be a chaos and stuff like that. I wish there was a little more friendly fire,
Yeah,
or at least a
totally.
way to turn it on.
Right.
Yeah,
I agree.
way to turn it on and off would be nice. Speaking of flamers, I wish you could burn down woods.
Yeah, that's like the best thing about the XCOM games. At least the first
The
one
first one, yeah.
was using the environment and like
Hmm.
and heat is a thing in this game. So if you're in a forest and I set the forest on fire, like that should affect your heat.
That should affect your heat. That should set up some smoke that would maybe like offer cover to people behind it. There's a couple little things. It's not something I'd say I'd want to see a lot of, or I think people would use a lot of. So I'm sure that's why it didn't get in. But man, it would be something people would talk about. Like I burned the forest down to get this guy, and they wouldn't do it often, but the times they did it,
Right.
they would be super excited about it. Um,
Right. It does do a good job of using the environment and the terrain of the planets, and
hmm.
you can like cower behind mountains and stuff, and it's cool.
Yeah,
But that would be some next level shit if you could burn a forest down or
yeah,
use the environment in that way.
yeah. Just a little more destructible environment. Not a lot would be good. Um, you didn't feel super stoked about melee.
I love it. Like it's one of my go to combat strategies. But I think this is kind of where I was saying the you can kind of feel the Unity engine, or like they didn't do enough with the engine because it doesn't feel very substantial when you're doing it. Like if you're stomping on a tank, the animation's kind of half-assed. It doesn't feel as awesome as it should feel to stomp on a tank with a giant robot.
I think what happened is they came up with a couple generic animations for melee attacks and applied it to everything, whether you're stomping on a mech, or whether you're stomping on a tank, or whether you're stomping on a building. It all ends up just being the same thing. And since they're doing stuff in squares, or is it hexes? It's hard to tell with
I
these
think
dots.
yeah, I like that it's not squares. I think they're some form of
I
hex.
think there's some form of hex. Um, because of that, you're never really entering the other person's tile,
Yeah.
and
You're
so
interacting with the tile, not the person.
yeah, I
I don't know,
could be
man.
done better. Could be done better. I agree with you. Could
If
be
I'm
done better.
stomping on a tank, I want it to be awesome.
Yeah.
I want to feel huge and cool.
Hmm.
And you don't. But like from a combat strategy perspective, there's a lot about it I like. Like it ignores evasion, which kind of makes sense, and like it's cool.
Hmm.
It's a cool way to do it, uh, and I love doing it.
Yeah.
But I just wish that the engine made you feel like you were kicking ass.
Yeah. Like you're actually like ripping a giant robot apart with your own robot's bare hands. That would be
Exactly.
yeah.
Right.
In the melee thing, do you ever use death from above?
I do. I use
Do
it.
you?
I use it when I'm out of patience at the end of a match and I no longer care anymore. Like I know I've won. I just want to, uh, knock the dude out. So I do some DFA action, but it's very punitive.
It's too punitive. I understand it should be punitive, but it is prohibitively punitive. You have essentially said this mech is done when you've done that because both legs become so damaged that they're going to get shot out. So
Yeah.
it has to
It's
be a finisher.
and that's where you use your jump jets to basically land
Land on
on
top of one of the other
of
mechs. Yeah.
another mech, and it makes sense that it should mess your legs up. But it is really like a last ditch,
Hmm.
kind of deal. Boy, this mission's a real cluster jam, isn't it?
Oh, it is. No, I have a hard time with this one, and since I was recording this, I just let some stuff kind of go.
Yeah. One thing I will say about the engine, the lack of Overwatch, things like that, it seems to encourage you to be aggressive, so much so that you really have to deliberately stop and consider defensive options. Like
Hmm.
I never think, well, what really makes the most sense here is to brace for this round and not do any damage because you're in the shit all the time with everyone and you've always got a chance to attack. You've always,
Yeah, I don't do enough with my defense. I know that. I'm definitely not doing enough with it here because I'm being way too aggressive. But um,
but it wants you to be like you can just sense it because you've
mm,
always got lines of attack. You don't have those options to overwatch to bide your time, and you
hmm
can do like the reserve, which is kind of how you manipulate the initiative phases. uh
yeah,
but even then, like when you're in the thick of it, you don't really think about like, oh, maybe I should just reserve or brace or cower.
yeah. I think what bit me in like this one that we're watching here is like in the beginning, I just had one guy who like sensor locked and they were all trapped on the other side of the hill. So I was just lobbing missiles, lobbing missiles. I'm
Yeah.
like, man, this is kind of easy. And then all of a sudden, like, you're running out of time, asshole. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm on the clock, aren't
Yeah, right.
I? I
Right. And
forgot.
that's yeah, to the difficulty ramp up, right? Because
Yeah.
like the first couple missions where you're like story missions, they're not that hard. I didn't have any problems with the
Mm-mm.
first one, the first like two after you get your ship, but it seems like it spikes up because this looks like hard as shit.
Well, yeah, like I'm taking out this lance, and if you just saw somebody dropped off another lance, this lance was all like 45-ton max. Maybe there's like one that was like a 25 and a 35. It's doable. There were three turrets, but there's two turret generators. You take out the generators, bop, they're gone. This is doable. And then they drop a dragon and a catapult and two other heavy mechs. Uh, and they're all good pilots with skills. One has two PPC cannons that will just mess up your day. I'm like, I'm already chewed up from what I just did, and now I gotta face a fresh lance of heavy mechs with quality pilots.
Right. It's
Screw you.
it's so hard.
And do I just not do the mission? Do I go back? Do I reload and like maybe run some side missions for a while? Maybe that's what I should be doing. Build up my XP, build up a wider bunk of mechs. Maybe finally get. There's a place that's selling parts for Black Knights. They're 900,000, but there's a place that's selling parts for Black Knights. So maybe I go do that. Part of the
Yeah.
problem is I'm running out of money. So I'm looking at this one that's worth 2 million going, well, that would just I could then coast for a little bit and I could do some fixing up on the ship if I just knock this out. So for 2 days I've been trying different plays to run this mission. Like, and the first
Yeah.
time I ran it, I got my ass kicked, and the second time I did a little better, and I do a little better. That is one thing that's really cool about this game is even in the hard missions, I do a little better, and then I do a little better, and then I do a little better, and
Yeah.
that's great. That's a good feeling. Like even when you aren't winning, you do better each time if you're practicing and figuring stuff out.
Right. There's so much to learn in this game and so much to keep in your head. Uh, but it's not like like I have a hard time, to be honest, with some of the Civ games because it seems like a bunch of esoteric rules where like every building is dependent on the other building and dependent on the landscape, blah 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 blah.
Hmm.
Here the rules are relatively simple, like, you know, shoot off the left side of the mech and you can like
They're
destroy it.
intuitive. Like
Right, it makes sense.
if he's holding a gun, shoot the gun. If
Right.
you
Right,
know.
and the angle where you're attacking, like here on the top of the UI, see those red
Hmm.
braces around the left side? That
Yep.
means you're going to hit him on that side.
Yeah.
And like that's an important strategy element to understand in this game
And
is
there's little,
where you're attacking.
yeah, it's hard to see right now, but there's times where the lines above them, there'll be little circles on the bottom with 4 quadrants. Which one of those is lit up tells you whether you're attacking from the side or the rear based on what it's going through. So there's lots of ways to get information in this game, but
Yeah.
the question
But
is, are you having fun?
I'm having a lot of fun with it. Like I've been enjoying it. I started to do some of the harder missions where hit those spikes, and that took me out of it quite a bit.
Hmm.
Um, because it's not fun to just get decimated.
No.
Uh, but I mean, my answer to that is to go do other missions and build up salvage and like kind of grind
Hmm.
to get money and to get some shit. So you always feel like you have options, you know?
Yeah.
You're not shoehorned into these difficult missions that are just impossible.
No. I'm pounding on this for 2 days because I want to. Like,
Yeah.
I know I could go back to an old load. That's another thing. There's no Iron Man.
Yeah.
Reload. Other complaint though, you can't name your save games. It just
Right. That is a problem.
that is that is to me up there with even beyond Overwatch, unacceptable in a game. That is an
Right.
unacceptable situation in a game that I cannot name. If you're going to let me have multiple save games, I get to name them.
Right. Totally.
I
Yeah,
mean,
you're right.
they have an interesting system where like you can create new games, then it creates a new pilot, and then they have their own roster of save games, and that's great. But like I may want to go down 2 different tracks with the same pilot and see what happens, and the way it's set up doesn't really let you do that.
Yeah. That's very
So
true.
he's about to
Very true.
tip,
Yeah.
tippity tippity.
But yeah, I think, I would recommend this to anyone who likes small squad strategy, turn-based strategy games. Absolutely. What I think it gives you over XCOM and the others is that brawler ability to like take hits, to whittle people down over time instead of trying to land one great shot that kills them. I think it's a good game. I think it's solid.
Yeah, I think it's a solid game. I think if you're into BattleTech now, you probably already have this. Uh, if you're on the fence, and if listening to us for the last hour or so hasn't sort of sold you on the game, wait a little bit, see what the patches do. They're gonna be pushing out some more patches. They're gonna be pushing out some more stuff. If you've always been interested in the universe, I feel like this is a good way to get into it. Um,
I definitely agree.
this is not something. Don't be intimidated by years of lore and all sorts of things you need to keep track of and pay attention to. This was done by the guys who originally started the game. They're bringing it back to a place where it feels very comfortable to get in. It's a sci-fi thing, so there's some exposition you're going to have to kind of roll into, but that's okay. They take your hand where they need to, and you will figure out the lore over time and just let yourself sink into it because it's a fun universe. It's a fun brawler game. Oh, here I'm gonna go attack with a punch.
Yeah, here's the
It's
see like
okay. It
that.
just doesn't feel. I want to see him tip more. I think that's what's because the windup and everything looked great. I want to see that guy I hit feel like I hit him, not just sort of rock a little bit.
It's also worse with the tanks too because you don't always stomp on them. You usually destroy the tanks
Mm,
when you physically attack them. Uh, but sometimes you don't even stomp directly on the tank. You stomp in front of it and it just explodes.
yeah,
And that's disappointing.
yeah,
Like I know it's a nitpicky thing, but like the whole appeal of the universe is that I'm stomping around in this huge mech. Like I want to fuck
right,
some shit up.
yeah. And like right now, the other thing I want to say is like we've been mostly of course we saw the tutorial, which was a forest world to begin with, but there's forest world, there's desert worlds, there's tundra worlds, there's lake worlds, there's moon worlds, um, all with their own variants that change how combat works. So you're not going to get bored if you like tactical games. It's going to give you a nice run of stuff. Like here it says whirlwind. That's something that
Oh yeah,
provides
yeah,
cover. Yeah. So there's that lots of different little things that keep changing stuff up. So
yeah,
all right. Anything else you want to say about this? It's kind of a one-off for us.
yeah. I think we covered everything here in the notes. I think it's a good game. I think it's worth your time if you like strategy.
Yes. And if you like Battletech. So
Yeah, definitely if you like BattleTech.
all right. Well then, based on when we put this out, I'm betting this will be after we do Bard's Tale. So next time will be Strike Commander,
Yeah.
and we'll talk about that in about a month. All right.
Thanks
Talk to everybody
everyone.
later. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.